It's been widely reported in recent days that the UN's highest court, the International Court of Justice, has ordered Israel to halt its military operations in Gaza. But did it? In the opinions published after the ruling, it became clear that 4 of the 5 judges who addressed the complaint believed that Israel should be allowed to continue its military action in Rafah, as long as that action did not put the Palestinian population at risk of annihilation, either in full or in part, which explains why the following ruling is ambiguous and it is open to interpretation. Let me put it on the screen. Israel, they said, will immediately halt its military offensive and any other action in the Rafah Governorate which may inflict on the Palestinian group in Gaza conditions of life that could bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part. I'll leave that on the screen for a second, and you will see that sentence is split into 3 parts. Does it tell us in legal terms that Israel must halt its entire Rafah military operation? Or does it say it can continue with that operation provided it does not constitute a genocidal risk? The ruling seems to allow different parties to make very different interpretations, which they have. With us tonight is barrister Natasha Hausdorff, who volunteers as the legal director of the UK Lawyers for Israel Charitable Trust. Welcome to the programme.
Good evening, Christian. Good to be with you.
It's not the first time the judges have differed in their opinions and tried to find a form of compromise that everyone can agree on. The trouble is the compromise brought about such a vague text, as we've just seen, that each side seems to be reading into it what they want.
But of course, it's not the first time that a provisional measures order in this case has been, it seems, universally misrepresented in the international media. We've seen the 26th of January order being presented as though it indicated there was plausible genocide. Eventually, even the BBC has acknowledged that that is not the case after Joan Donoghue came on to Hard Talk several months after all of this misreporting had been circulating to correct the false impressions. And unfortunately, I think we're seeing a repeat here since Friday's order, all across the bank holiday weekend, reporting, including from the BBC, saying that Israel must immediately cease its operations.
So would it be fair then that the Israeli government, in its interpretation of this ruling, considers itself free to continue the operation in Rafah?
Well, let me just be clear about what you have said the order has said, if I may first, because if we compare it with other provisional measures that the court has ordered, for example, in 2022, with respect to the Russian Federation, it used very clear language that Russia did need to halt immediately its operations that began in February of 2020, I believe. So
2022.
No, the order was in 2022. You're right, that it commenced on the 24th of February 2022. The wording used was that the Russian Federation shall immediately suspend the military operations that it commenced on the 24th.
So you're comparing that with the vagueness or the ambiguity of the statement they put out the other day?
Well, I'm comparing the clarity of that order with the text that we have in the order from Friday. And there is a key qualification that I would respectfully suggest you've missed out of the reporting even of what was put onto the screen. And that is the qualifier for all of the provisional measures that the court ordered on Friday, which states that Israel shall, in conformity with its obligations under the Genocide Convention, take these measures. And it's clear in that respect that the court is only ordering Israel to comply with its obligations under the Genocide Convention, as it has in all of the previous provisional measures orders.
But it talks about committing to ensuring the humanitarian well-being of the Palestinian population. And therein is an obvious problem. We've had an incident, as Mr. Netanyahu describes it, that reportedly killed or wounded close to 150 people on Sunday. MSF say there are no adequate health facilities to treat the scores of people they've taken in over severe injuries, all of them with severe injuries. The strike was outside, maybe inside, that's very much up for debate, the evacuation area, certainly in a part of Gaza where the displaced people were told to move. And there are governments that now say Israel is not complying with this order, even if you were to read it in the way that you interpret.
No doubt encouraged by a lot of the misreporting that we've heard of Friday's order. I think the judgment certainly is clear and enforced. That is reinforced with the separate opinions of Judge Orescu, of Judge Nolte, who agreed with the Provisional Measures Order, and also of the separate opinions by Sebutinde, the dissenting opinion, and of the ad hoc Judge Barak. So read in that context, I'm afraid what is being said, not least in the media, but also by many of these states, is incorrect. But I also need to be clear, the misreporting doesn't just focus on the order, but on the facts that have been emerging since that strike you have referred to on Sunday evening. It is certainly clear from maps that the IDF has produced that the strike is not where the internationally prescribed terrorist organization Hamas has claimed it to be. It was out with the evacuation zone.
Yeah, but it is surrounded by a lot of tents. If you look at the satellite pictures, and that therein is the question of whether it was merited.
And there have even been reports, videos of Gaza residents on the grounds talking about secondary explosions. So the latest reporting
just one final point.
Forgive me, can I just address
go ahead.
The latest reporting is that these secondary explosions are most likely to have resulted from an ammunitions dump. And indeed, Gaza residents have been speaking of Hamas ammo depots and other weapons.
I know, but you're here to talk about the law. There's a lot to be investigated in respect of what happened on Sunday. Just with regard to the ruling, among the other parts of the ruling, the court says that its previous orders must be fulfilled. That Israel must open the Rafah crossing for the purpose of providing humanitarian aid, that Israel must allow in any UN investigative team to enter the Gaza Strip, and that Israel will submit to the court a report detailing all the steps that it has taken in these contexts. That ruling suggests that their earlier rulings have not been abided by.
Well, that was the key criticism that Judge Sebutinde, the vice president of the court, made in her dissenting opinion, that in fact these rulings are pointless. They already exist in the court's previous orders. Let's just take each of them in turn, if I may.
Just
Christian,
quickly,
you and I both know that the Rafah crossing is shared with Egypt, and Israel is not in a position to open it unilaterally. That's number one. In terms of the humanitarian provision, Sebutinde was clear. She was the only one, unfortunately, that recorded in detail the amount of humanitarian assistance that Israel has been facilitating. Over 30,000 trucks. We're looking at the moment, nearly 500,000 tons of aid that has been
1,000 trucks went in every day before the conflict,
which are not comparable because they contained building materials and other provision that is not humanitarian. So I'm sorry, let's not compare apples with oranges. But critically, what the record of Israel's latest updates to the court, despite the fact that they were put under enormous time pressure, again, another criticism Sebutinde outlines, what Israel's latest updates of the humanitarian initiatives indicate is that it is not the impasse here, but in fact, Hamas's activity on the ground, which is attributable, so far as we can see, to this latest explosion, loss of life, but also to stealing aid and diverting aid, is what the International Court of Justice ought to be focusing on, as opposed to passing the buck. And the reason we're not seeing this is because of the politicization of the court, not least the failure of the current president to recuse himself under Article 17 of the Rome Statute. I think that also underscores the politicized nature of what we have been seeing over the last few days.
Natasha Hausdorff, thank you very much indeed for that.